Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to the podcast that we might have to rename Netflix versus Cinema versus Football. Because in this week, we have had... Shaun, you're going to have to jump in here with me. Because Sharon, I'm not sure whether you were following the football this week.
I was not.
Okay, yeah. And okay. It's been a bit of, it's been a bit of a crazy week. It's been that kind of week where I've forgotten to introduce myself. My name is Tosin. I'm up in the Midlands. With me on the Isle of Wight are Sharon.
Hello.
And Shaun.
Hi, yeah.
And we are recording the day. So this is a Thursday, and it is after, which follows a Wednesday, which follows a Tuesday. But the thing about this Wednesday and Tuesday is that on Wednesday, Tottenham made it to the Champions League final in crazy, mental comeback fashion. And on Tuesday, Liverpool made it to the Champions League final in crazy, mental...
crazy fashion.
Mental comeback fashion. Essentially, if you made this a movie, people would say, oh, for goodness sake, it is just too far-fetched. It's unrealistic. Yeah, of course they're going to score in the final meeting with the last kick of the game. Yeah, who didn't see that coming?
That's right. If you saw it in the movies, you know me being the cynic I am. I would be like, that wouldn't happen. Do you know what I mean? I would be. That's how I would be.
You'd say, don't behave.
Yeah, behave. I mean, the game, and it was such a shame. The Liverpool game was fantastic. I watched the whole of that game.
Yeah.
And I watched the Tottenham game yesterday, and.
Were they both this week, these games?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
both semi-finals. And I was like, it was going really bad. And I thought, this is over. And, like sometimes you get... And so I was doing other stuff. It was still on, but I was doing other stuff. And then when I looked, it's like, whoa. So I had to sit down. So I missed a little section of the second half where I was just sort of wandering out. I went off to make a tea during the half-time and I wasn't worried about rushing to get back.
What is it for? It's for a championship or something?
Euros.
The European
yeah.
Championship.
Okay, so Sharon, tell me if I get condescending in this explanation. But essentially, so you have all the leagues in all the countries all around Europe, right?
Yes.
Then the people who come at the top of the league, or it depends on which country you are. Sometimes it's the top two, it's the top three, or top four in some countries. They go into this special competition called the Champions League, which is the best of Europe against the best of Europe. And it's so obviously because it's the best of Europe against the best of Europe, I have people for all these different countries around Europe competing. Think about it like sort of like Eurovision Song Contest for football. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So it's quite unusual then for two British teams to be head-to-head for the championship.
It's only ever happened once before, which is Man United, Chelsea. And so it's quite unusual, but the fact is, this time round, so imagine last week was essentially like Avengers Infinity War. So they play all their matches in two legs. So Liverpool are playing, and so they'll play one match at home where they'll play up in Liverpool. Then if they're playing against, I don't know, Sparta Prague, they'll play the second leg a week later in Prague.
Yeah. So basically, they have two games each in each country in each other's countries,
Okay.
and whoever scores the best over two legs, if you score an away goal, it's a little bit more of an advantage because if it becomes a draw, if you've scored more away goals in the other person's country, you get
Yeah.
But both teams, both British teams,
So essentially, it's like if we're going to put it in a Netflix or a cinema thing, if you score 4 out of 5 this week, you can still not go through because next week you could score 1 out of 5, and that's it. You're out. And,
okay.
Yeah, and so Liverpool last week in their version of Avengers Infinity War, they were on the side of the Avengers and they lost badly. They lost. They lost. Go away. Sorry, they lost badly. They lost. Sorry, that was my phone started ringing. Why did that? So yeah, they lost badly last week. And then they were 3-0 down, and they came back and it was improbable. It was totally improbable that they had to score 4 goals against one of the best teams in the world, who's one guy who's largely regarded to be the best player ever. And they went and did it in a sort of crazy. So essentially, I do not expect anybody in Liverpool to have been sober on Wednesday morning.
That's it.
Well, I'm still not really that interested. No. But I'm sure people who are, it's very exciting, and I'm happy for them.
Yes, no, honestly.
I'm happy for all you football watchers. I'm very happy for you.
Honestly, I think it was almost impossible to not get caught up in this because I don't support any football team. I just like football. But I was just kind of like, this is mad. And when that happened so Liverpool had the Infinity War last week, and then this week they had the End Game where they came roaring back, and it was just mental. And people were like, "Oh my god!" Yeah, they were like the greatest comeback ever.
And the same with Tottenham.
Yeah. But the thing is, after the Liverpool match, everybody was going, "That's it. That will never happen again." And then the next night, something just as crazy happened. You're like, what is going on? And I was actually thinking that, what I said, that we might have to start calling this Netflix versus cinema versus football. I think cinema, Netflix, whatever they are very, very lucky that not every football game is like that. Because if every football game was like that, there is no contest. Football wins every single time, but a lot of football games are boring. So that's why we go to the cinema, because we need something that's going to be guaranteed to be entertaining.
Sometimes.
Yes, yeah, but
wow.
But essentially, honestly, you couldn't script it. I mean, as we said, if you'd scripted this and you put it into a film, it would suck. You would be like, oh, for goodness sake, of course those guys are going to win. Oh my god, but the narrative is just madness. When you think about it, you had the coach of all people of Tottenham. He was blubbing. He was in full on man tears.
They were. I think Toes. I think we better get on to the movies.
I think
we got a lot. We got a lot to talk about.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm sure most people would have known by now about the old footies. So I think we should crack on. We've got a lot to do tonight.
We've got a lot to do tonight, and I can feel Sharon already sort of losing interest. So,
yeah, it was like those where you got your hands on your chin and gradually going down and down. No, she wasn't that bad, really. Wasn't that bad, really.
Okay, cool.
Well, I'm glad it was a good week for football. I'm glad.
It was a good week. So now you can go and blag it with anybody who tells you anything about football this week, Sharon. Anyway.
Yes, right.
So we're gonna get onto actual Netflix versus cinema. We're going to talk about things in the cinema that we've seen this week, rate them. We're going to talk about things we've seen on Netflix this week. We're going to rate them. And at the end of the thing, we're going to see who has come up with, who's done better this week. So we're going to kick off with a film that all of us have seen, and this is Long Shot. This is the Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron movie, and in which she plays the U.S. Secretary of State who might be going for run at the president, so for presidential election, and she meets Seth Rogen, who's someone who she used to babysit, and it turns out that she needs a script writer. He's just been let out of work, and he starts writing scripts for her, and it's no real big thing to say. This is pretty much a romantic comedy, so you kind of know where some things are supposed to go. But I have to say, for a romantic comedy, I really like this film. And what did you guys think?
I think for me it was quite political as well. I thought it was really quite a political film and had a few political messages in there, which I thought was quite good. There were a couple of bits that I perhaps had a couple of issues with, but on the whole, it was it wasn't a wasted.
It wasn't a waste of your unlimited card.
No, that's for sure. Well, none of it is really, and that's the joy of the unlimited card, isn't it? Really. So what about Sharon? Perhaps this would be interesting.
I didn't love it. I mean, it was okay. I thought it was an okay film. I thought it was an interesting mix. I didn't think it would work. When you look on paper, Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen, you think that wouldn't work. But actually, they did have good chemistry, and I thought their relationship worked really well. And there were some funny moments. I think Andy Serkis's sort of cameo was his grotesque
good Lord.
Baron. Was just he was unrecognisable as Andy Serkis, wasn't he?
But he was a cross between a few characters, wasn't he?
Yes, there's a certain Mr. President in there,
there's like a genre, There's Mr. Presidents and
there's
Murdoch, talk show hosts.
There's Murdoch in there.
Rupert Murdoch, that's it. That's the boy. Yeah,
yes,
it was quite a good character. He was a real
overblown, awful person, and I think we've seen a lot of that sort of person on the news, haven't we?
I think that's where the political message came. Really.
That was and I think there was a few digs about how politicians, they start off with a grand ideology, really,
Yeah.
and then it gets watered down and compromised, and so that was.
they have to compromise.
And I thought Alexander Skarsgård did a very comic turn as the Canadian
Prime Minister. Yeah.
Again, a sort of a bit of a dig at Justin. Is it not? What's his name?
Justin Theroux.
Justin Theroux. The
Trudeau.
Canadian.
No, Trudeau. Justin Trudeau.
Trudeau. That's it.
With the big grin.
Yeah, with the grin and the fact that his sort of
Yeah.
he's seen as this sort of like handsome, perfect sort of world leader, isn't he? The Canadian. He's like, oh, the Canadian Prime Minister. He's a bit of a dish, and yet he's awful. So I thought that was quite good to see Alexander Skarsgård play against type, really. To play someone who you go, no, he's awful.
Yes, he was really awful.
So there were some funny moments. I thought there was the funniest moment for me was a bit at the very end where you have this sort of Wembley television where it's this newscasters and there's 3 newscasters and the 2 men are just awful, unrelentingly sexist and awful.
It's
and
obviously
the female presenter.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's obviously a take on Fox News.
Yeah.
Yes, where they were awful. They were just constantly making these sexist or sexual comments about Charlize Theron's character. And at the end, she goes, "Oh, I've had enough of this, and I quit." And then she throws her coffee cup, and it hits one straight in the head.
Yes, I thought
that
was
was
great.
my laugh. That was my only laugh out loud moment where I actually did go, "Ha ha ha!" But there were the odd snigger. So, but it's okay. I mean, for me, it was a bit too sweary.
Yeah,
and,
I can imagine.
And some of the sort of more. I can only use the word sort of grotesque moments were grotesque.
I think I probably can think of the couple you're thinking.
Yes.
I think essentially
So
anybody listening to this, if you've seen There's Something About Mary, there's a scene in this film to rival a scene in Something About Mary.
Yes. So it wasn't my humour, really. I didn't know it was going to be quite so suggestive in places. But
They didn't. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So some of it I was thinking,
they didn't
this is not really my humour. But I can understand that, that if it would.
But they didn't really need to show it, did they, to make it? I mean,
no.
That really. But I suppose they.
So yeah, I thought it was an okay film. It didn't really grab me, and I wouldn't probably go and see it again. But I thought it's okay. It's okay. Do you have any highlights that you thought were particularly funny?
Well, the thing is, I actually really liked it. You know Andy Serkis, right? So Andy Serkis is in this film, and I spent the whole film going, "Who is that guy? Who is that guy? Oh my god!" And I was thinking that's quite a big character, quite a big role. Usually they'll give it to a character actor, but who is this guy? And I couldn't figure out who this person was for the entire film. And it wasn't until the end of the film when it said Andy Serkis, and I was like, "Oh my god, yes!"
Now I see. Yeah, now I get it. Yeah. It took me a little while. I mean, it wasn't his first appearance. It was like 2 or 3 appearances in. I suddenly thought, that's who you are. Because there's something about his sort of, his movement of his nose and his mouth. I was thinking, I know you. And then I got it about the 3rd time he was on screen. I was like, yes, you're Andy Serkis.
No, yeah. I personally, I had like no clue throughout the whole film. So I think I actually quite like because Seth Rogen, because when he plays a role in the film, he plays Seth Rogen, and there's some films in which it becomes overbearing. Like I think a lot of comedians, that's where it becomes overbearing. But there's some films where they manage to get the balance right. And I thought this was one of those films where you couldn't get the balance more right. I think the relationship between him and Charlize Theron's character is very, very believable. It is believable that the way it's sketched out and the fact that she's somebody who has her life in public eye, and when she meets somebody who actually just knows her, I totally believe that could happen. I totally believe. I mean, obviously, it's the name of the film is titled for that. It's a long shot. I totally believe that could happen. I quite liked Seth Rogen's best friend, and they were.
Yes.
Yeah, I quite like.
He was good.
He was.
Oh yeah, and I quite like the assistant as well. She was because although she was like a hard bitch, she was sort of quite. Her heart was in the right place, and I liked her.
Oh
yeah. I don't know.
Thank you so much for showing that, for reminding me about that, Shaun. I almost forgot about that. She was pretty much my highlight because the assistant.
Yeah, I think so.
Is played by an actress called June Diane Raphael, and I love her. I absolutely love her. I mean, everything that she's been in, I think that she's like usually the best thing. Nobody can deliver a snarky line like she can.
Yeah, she's sort of really like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
quite clever as well, quite witty. I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
As well, it was
Yeah,
disapproving, sort of approving, disapproving type of thing. You know.
yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, and she's the kind of person that makes me think. I'm like, oh, she needs to be. Well, she should be a bigger star. But then, if she was a bigger star, they might put her in things, and she might not be as effective. And her husband.
What other films has she been in then?
She's mainly on TV. She's in Grace and Frankie.
Right, okay.
And stuff like that. She's shown up in. She tends to do guest star roles in a whole bunch of different things. And her husband in real life plays one of those Wembley news anchors, like one of those Fox News anchors. He's a comedian called Paul Scheer, and she is about the only reason why I envy that man. So essentially, I love June Dyer Raphael. She's brilliant. Go watch the film for her. But the rest of the film is really good. I thought it was as a rom-com. I think as a rom-com, I think it actually works quite well. I think the romance is believable all the way up to the end, and I think a lot of it feels effortless because I think a lot of it feels effortless because Sharon, I'm not as worried about the crassness or anything like that because I think I'm probably still a teenage boy somewhere in my head. So I'm not as worried about that. So I just thought like the film flowed. It felt effortless. So even by the point when it fulfills the tropes of a romantic comedy, you're still I wasn't going, oh, for goodness sake, oh, this again. I was like, oh, actually, within the story they're telling me, this makes sense. So I really, really liked it. I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay,
cool.
For me, yeah. As I say, it had moments. It was, I didn't feel wasted, but I don't think there was anything particularly great in it, anything special. It was a, okay movie, solid film. So I'm going to give this a 3 for me. It's a 3 for me. Yeah,
I'd give it a 3. I mean, it wasn't my humour, but I could see that there was humour in it, and I think people would enjoy it. It wasn't my cup of tea, but that's, disappointing. So I'd give it a 3.
Cool. Good stuff. So we have that to kick off with. All right. And now we're going to go from cinema and go into the world of home entertainment, into the world of Netflix and Friends. Maybe I'll start calling that. And Sharon, you have something for us this week. You saw a film on, you said, I think Amazon, called The Case for Christ.
Yes.
So, fire away. Tell us.
This is a film based on anyone around sort of church circles in the 1990s will be very familiar with the book, The Case for Christ, written by a journalist by the name of Lee
Strobel.
Strobel, let's say, make sure I get the pronunciation right. Lee Strobel. And basically, his wife became a Christian midway through their marriage. He was a committed atheist, and he wanted nothing to do with the church. He thought it was all a load of superstition and nonsense. And when his wife became a Christian, he thought, right, the only way he'll be able to convince her is by proving that it was all nonsense. So one of his Christian colleagues at his workplace, he works at a newspaper, said, there's too much to start with. If you want to debunk Christianity, start with the resurrection. That's, if you can debunk that, then, you've got it made. And so he basically sets out trying to disprove the resurrection. And in doing so, he actually can't and becomes a Christian himself. And so it became a hugely best-selling a book in the 1990s that was huge among church circles. And it sold, millions of copies worldwide. So it's a very well-known book if you know church circles. So, it's an interesting take on to see that it was made into a film.
So is it a dramatization of his story, or is it
Yes, it's a dramatization of his story. He's played by an actor called, let me find him.
That's an interesting
name.
Mike
Vogel. Mike Vogel plays him in the film, and Mike Vogel, I think most people would know him for Under the Dome. There was a television series of the Stephen King novel, and his wife is played by Erica Christensen. And then there's guest appearances by Faye Dunaway, Robert Forster, a few people sort of pop up in there throughout the film. But so it's a dramatisation of his book, which was semi-autobiographical. It was his own. As a journalist, he wanted to go and disprove things. So he talked to doctors about, did Jesus die on the cross or did he just faint?
Yeah.
Was he unconscious or was he dead? And so a doctor then explains what crucifixion is and how you don't survive crucifixion. The Romans knew what they were doing. Yeah. And then you get someone else talking about witnesses, the eyewitness accounts. Was it mass hallucination when people said they saw Jesus? And then so he goes and speaks to a psychologist saying, the actual events of mass hallucination are not just rare, they just never happened. They've never been a proven case of mass hallucination.
Yeah.
Individuals hallucinate, but people corporately don't. It's just not something that the human brain does.
Okay.
And so basically it does take all these things. So it was an interesting film based on a very well-known book. And so, yeah, it was worth a watch if you're interested in sort of Christian cinema and Christian novels.
So, is this one they would show at the cinemas on
they did in America? They did. They did.
I was
going to
say. I mean, those big things I said when I've been to the cinema in Enfield and the whole cinema on a Sunday, and they were showing those. So would this be a Christian film?
Yes, it's aimed at Christians because it's. Yeah. Although its message is aimed at sort of non, because it's most people have said to me, anyone who's is a Christian will have someone saying, well, they try to say to you, well, it probably didn't really happen and it's probably a load of old nonsense. And then you think, well, actually, you can look at the crucifixion and the life of Jesus in a historical context, ignore faith, ignore the church. You can look at it historically because there's lots of documents outside of the church to back it all up.
For me, on a personal, that's what I think. I think he was a historical character because I think he's also in the Quran as well.
Yeah, I don't know if he's in the Quran, but yeah.
Yeah, he is definitely 100% in the Quran. They mention him.
Yeah, well, he's. So I mean, Jesus is mentioned.
Anyway,
he's excuse me, sorry. He's mentioned in just like historians of the day talk about him. So he was around at that time. He was actually alive, and he was a big deal. So it
was a big deal, that's it. And so I do believe that he existed, but I think he was more of because of the stuff he did in the temples and stuff, he was treated as a criminal, and so it's we can't have someone like that doing all this sort of stuff. And then these sort of so he did exist, but I mean that's about as far as I'm.
That's all good to say.
Okay.
Well, I think. Yeah, it comes to here. This is the guy who wanted to look at the evidence, and he looked at it as a journalist.
Can I ask what the evidence was or not?
He's looked at scholars. He asked about the veracity. How can you verify the church accounts? What history is there about the life of Jesus? And who testified about seeing the resurrected Jesus? And
cool.
There's a lot of there's something like 700 or 800 people said they'd seen the risen Jesus. Historically, that's a big deal. So there's a lot of evidence about to support the fact that Jesus did rise from the dead.
Okay, so speaking as somebody who was in church circles in the mid-90s, as you said, I know that this book was usually trotted out as a slam dunk. It was kind of like one of those things where people in some of the circles, actually you had something where you have some people who would almost be a bit like, oh, relief, yes. Now, whenever any of my atheist friends say anything, I can slap them in the face with this book.
Yes.
So, and I, to be honest with you, when you talk about the film, my initial instinct is to not watch it because I feel it's going to be, now I can slap him in the face with this film, and it's going to be a bit of a almost a bit like piece
God's
of
not dead.
God's not dead. Piece of propaganda. It's where the characters are just going to be sort of there to be types and to set up arguments to be knocked down. How does this work as a film?
I think it works dramatically because you can see how if you have a marriage and then one person has a sort of Christian conversion or any sort of spiritual change and the other partner doesn't, how it can really cause a problem.
Did it cause us? That was the thing.
Oh yes,
so
it almost broke their marriage up.
It
didn't,
right,
but
okay.
it came very close to actually breaking their marriage up. And so there's drama in it, there's tension in it. So it works for me. It works as a film, but obviously I've got a bit of a bias before I went into it because I was quite interested. So I would say, I mean, I knew how it's going to end, and I think anyone watching this film would probably think, well, they're certainly not going to make a film where they say, you know what, it was all a load of old nonsense. Let's make a film about that.
It's like we're going to do the case for Christ, and the answer was, it's a whole bunch of rubbish.
So they're not like you. So basically what you're getting into when you go into this film. But so I would give it a 3 because I thought it was entertaining. But as someone as sort of like in a minority group, well, not a minority group. There's a lot of us about, but as in a group, it is aimed at someone like me. So I enjoyed it. I don't know what anyone else would get out of it.
Do you think the actors would they have been Christians or were they just actors?
I honestly don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know enough about them
because that would be quite interesting to see, wouldn't it? Whether they were, because I mean, there's I'm sure they've been in other things, but it'd just be interesting to know if they.
I think it gets messed up or it gets muddied because it's America, and in America the word Christian means a whole bunch of different things depending on where in the country you are. So it's and so. Yeah, it gets mixed up, and then you start getting into cases of who can say who's a Christian, and I don't even want to go anywhere near there. So
no. Okay, that's cool. So freestyle.
But there is a huge Christian industry in America. It's as big as Bollywood. I mean, they film cinemas, and I've got Christian friends from America who don't watch anything but Christian films or Christian television. They just won't watch it. Yeah. So it is an industry that makes millions in America,
sure it is.
and it barely sort of registers in this country at all. It barely makes people.
And my problem with it is, as an industry, that's the thing. It's an industry, so it's prone to all the things that affect other industries and all the cynicism and all the we're making this because we know it's going to make money. So anyway, moving away from that, let's just because you're going to get me on a rant. So but you're going to get me on a rant. I would say, as Shaun said, we don't have time for that today.
So 3 for me.
3-star. Cool.
3-star. Okay, cool. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's not the best film I've ever seen, but I liked it.
All right, cool. I might sort of like gird my loins and actually go watch it and then let you know what I think, and let you know whether it's whether it's pressed a whole bunch of buttons and a whole bunch of triggers that I have when it comes to Christian stuff. Anyway, so now we go back to cinema, and Shaun, this is a film that you saw, because this seems to be a film, and it seems to be about the only film in this country anyway that snuck into cinemas around about the same time as Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
Silly film. But
it's I mean, it's still. I know it's still on in Poole in Bournemouth. I know it's still on there. And that's where I saw it. It was only the one showing, and it's just that I happened to be over there because they haven't shown it here, and I can't see them getting it here.
It's not showing anywhere near me.
Really? Yeah. It must just be sort of limited release.
I think it's a massively limited release, because when I looked for it and tried to find the closest one to me, it was in Nottingham, which is about an hour and a half drive away from me.
Yeah. I think what it is, the cinema that I go to when I'm over there I'm not kidding, it's heaving, it's absolutely packed. So it must be, and I mean, they've got loads of screens, they've got studio screens. And funny enough, when I went to see Tolkien, which we're talking about later, originally I was going to wait and see Tolkien over here and then go and see Long Shot. Yeah. But the Long Shot was full.
Oh, wow.
It was full.
Wow.
And so that's when Tolkien was saying the same time. So I said, oh, well, I better decide. Yeah,
but it's a university town, isn't it, Bournemouth? So
yeah,
you've got a lot of students.
I mean, full. It's full. Sorry, we haven't got any seats. That's like, whoa. That's crazy. You know what I mean? So I thought, oh, well. So that's when I went and I saw Long Shot when I was over here because the timings were good, So, yeah. But anyway, the film. We haven't even said what it is yet, have we?
No.
I don't think we said what it is, yeah.
The mystery film.
Okay. The film is 8th Grade.
Yep.
Okay. And it's basically this, I guess it's a bit of an indie film. Mm-hmm. It's the story about, in America, they have like middle schools and high school, a bit like we used to have junior schools. And it's about this girl, she's like 13 and she's starting high school. And she does this blog as well, which she says about, if when you're a teenager, you get all these feelings. And she's almost like doing a blog, but you see, she hasn't got really many followers or anything like that, but she's actually talking about life, and and sort of goes through her. She lives with her dad, so it was quite poignant. I mean, the reason I went to see this film, because I really wanted to see it, is I was listening to a film show and they played this little trip. They played the trailer bit of a bit in the car where she's in the car with her dad and says, I mean, it's in the trailer, so she goes, why are you being weird? And he's like, he goes, I didn't think I was being weird. He goes, yeah, well, you were not talking and all that. And then he goes, well, what do you want me to say and all that? He goes, yeah, but don't. And I just thought that one clip on the radio sounded just like my daughter myself. When she was like 13, it was like, I thought, I have got to go see this movie. I've got to go see, and lucky enough it was on. Yeah. So otherwise it might have passed me by. But it was that little clip that I heard.
And after it, you go, what was that about?
Yeah. And oh, I tell you what, it's absolutely was spot on. I mean, this film for me there was things with her dad, you know what I mean, and her dad doing stuff all the time, and it was I thought, I can relate to that. That's how she was. That's how she was. That's how she was. I mean, it's just like, this is it. And there's bits in it where they buddy up. When they're going to go to high school, they have a sort of week where they shadow someone from the older one, and she hangs out with these older kids. And there's a scene there, a scene I really, really liked, because some of the kids were, the lads were being a bit laddie, and the girls were saying, "I'll leave her alone," and all that. And it's, I mean, this was warts and all. You know what I mean? They weren't like glamorous ones. She was,
like 20-year-olds pretending to be 15.
It was proper. You know what I mean? It was all the big zits and all things like that. And it was. I tell you what, it's an absolutely brilliant film. It was a really, 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 really for a film I didn't think I'd enjoy. It was just, I don't know. I think all teenagers should watch this movie, or because it was all the feeling. And she was saying about all these feelings and all what goes on, and you're going to be okay. And this little time capsule, and she does. I mean, it did. It sort of dragged on a little bit towards the end, but that's really the only criticism I could have of it. I just thought, that was it. That was, my daughter was just the same. Why are you looking at me like that? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not looking at you like anything. Do you know what I mean? Real stroppy tantrums. And I'm like, wow, that's...
it just brought back memories.
That's nuts. Yeah, it did. It really did. Nice memories, though. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I guess that's what they're like. You know what I mean? They've got loads of strange things happening. So, but that scene in the car was almost... I was taking... Ellie, she got a job.
Yeah.
And I was taking my daughter to work. And she practically said to me, she said, "Why are you being so weird?" And I had done nothing. I was just driving along.
Were you singing along to the radio or something?
That's it. The radio was on. I said, "Well, I don't think I'm being weird." "Yes, you are." She said, "Why are you looking at me like that?" I said, "I'm not looking at you like anything. I'm driving." And it was just like, man, I've been in that situation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a good film to watch. I really, really, really liked this movie.
Yeah, you see that was sure. The thing with you is, because I know you have a daughter, and I think that you're a bit of a sucker for a father-daughter film. And
big time.
And so I know whenever I see a film that has a father-daughter relationship in it, especially if it's done well, I'm like, yeah, Sean's gonna like this. Where everybody else is gonna be like, what's going on here? Sean's gonna be like, oh my god, I remember that. Oh my god, flashbacks, PTSD.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a really, for me, I really, really enjoyed it. As I say, it's not quite a 5-star, because I say it did sort of towards the end, it did seem a little bit sort of dragged out a little bit.
Yeah.
It was clever film, terrific acting, really, really good acting, totally believable. So I'm going to give this one a 4-star.
Oh, cool. Well, you see, this is a film I really want to see because I've been hearing really good things about it. But I think it's one of those films that is a bit of a hard sell, or people think it's a bit of a hard sell, because it's been released since before Christmas in America. So in America, you can actually watch it on Amazon Prime already. But it has, but it's only now getting, because I was trying to find the film to watch, and I looked up and it said Amazon. I was like, what? Then I realized it was actually American Amazon Prime I was talking about. So it's one I want to watch, but I think I'm gonna have to wait until it comes on TV, because it's just not having any wide release yet. Yes, no showings.
So keep an eye out on like Love Film 4 or something. They tend to get the indie films, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. But I've heard nothing but good things about this film. Nothing but good things.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah,
good film.
And Sean, one other thing for you: the girl the lead actress, her name's Ellie.
Yeah, I know. I did know. Yeah. I mean, it's very poignant.
Brings it even more. I think you and your daughter need to go watch this film together.
I think we probably do. Yeah, it's a believe it or not, she'd be 21 in 2 weeks.
Very nice.
Good Lord!
So I know, you wouldn't believe it, would you?
Good Lord!
She'd be 21. I know. So I'm going up to. I'm going to go and see her on the 21st, because she's having a fancy dress party for all her mates and stuff.
What are you going? What are you going as? Or are you not invited?
I don't know. It's got to be the strange thing is, it's got to be things you want to be. So, but I'm getting to the age now where I don't know what I want to be. You know what I mean? I could have said, I wanted to be a judge or a football manager or something. But I mean, so I don't know yet. I haven't quite decided. I think I might have to go as a I don't know, old codger
Happy
or
Hungry
something.
Hippo.
Hungry Hippo, yeah, that'd be something.
Yeah, Shaun, just go as Eddie Howe.
Yeah, that'd work.
Just go as Eddie Howe. All right. Okay. Cool. So, the Eighth Grade. Unfortunately, not on many screens. But if you can catch it somewhere near you, go watch it and then let me know what it's like. Go watch it and let me know what it's like. Right. So, we move on now to Osmosis Jones, and this is a film that I caught on Amazon Prime. And it's a film that I've been wanting to watch for years because I think this was originally released in the early noughties. It was originally released in the early noughties, and all I knew was that it was, as far as I was concerned, it was an animated film. That's what all the posters said. It was an animated film, and it was directed by the Farrelly brothers, who did Dumb and Dumber, and they did something about Mary and all that sort of stuff. And so when this film started, I was a bit shocked because the first thing you see is a live action segment, and I'm like, what the heck? And it's a live action segment, and then Bill Murray shows up, and I'm like, did I pick the right film or did I press play on the wrong thing? But the whole idea behind it, and this is, I love the central premise, is he's a zoo worker called Frank, and but he's very, very slobby. So this is Bill Murray in mega slobby mode. So an egg drops on the floor, and instead of sort of like throwing it away, he picks up the boiled egg and he puts it in his mouth while he's cleaning up the monkey cage. And so when he puts it in his mouth, it goes into his body, and it goes into an animated segment, and it's all about what happens in his body, and it's pretty much kind of like, so in his body, the white blood cells are the police force of his body. They call themselves the FPD, standing for the Frank Police Department, and they sort of guard against anything that comes into his body if there's anything bad. So the first thing you see the saliva things in his mouth, and they're firing at everything that comes into his mouth to make sure that it's like all broken down and all that before it goes into the stomach. When he eats the egg, a virus comes in, a virus who becomes the bad guy and is voiced by Lawrence Fishburne. And this virus comes into the body, and all the virus wants to do is just destroy everything. And it starts boasting, going, I took down a guy in like a week. The last guy I took down in 72 hours. And this one I'm going to take down in 48 hours. So the virus is there to kill him, essentially. All the virus wants to do is just destroy the body and get to like a nerve center in the brain and destroy everything. And it becomes almost kind of like an education of how your body works, but in the form of a body cop movie. So you have the white blood cells, but Chris Rock plays a white blood cell called Osmosis Jones, who is a disgraced white blood cell because he did something once and he caused the whole body to throw up in a very public place. So he's been relegated. So you know how you have the cop who's been relegated to traffic duty, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a detective, but he's been relegated to mouth duty, where he's just there to sort of be there and stop bad breath and all that kind of stuff. Then as part of this, it has a brilliant voice cast. You have William Shatner, who plays the mayor of the body, and he plays the mayor of the body, and they have this whole thing where he's running for re-election. And you know how when men are ill, they go, no, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. And they play the whole thing of this guy refusing to go to the doctor as a mayor white blood cell in his body who's telling him, no, don't go to the doctor. No, we want to win re-election. If you say you're sick, people will say it was because of me and all that. So it's really, really cool. Then at one point, the Bill Murray character swallows a cold pill. And this cold pill goes into his body, like, you know, like the cop from Out of Town who shows up, and it becomes a buddy cop thing between Osmosis Jones, who's this white blood cell, and this cold pill, and how they're going around the body trying to protect it from this virus that's trying to kill it. So I thought that that bit I thought was ingenious. I thought it was like a precursor to Inside Out or something, like using this anthropomorphic characters to try and show what actually goes on inside your body. I really, really, really liked it. The only problem is that the live action versions with Bill Murray and everything, it felt like everybody in the live action sections was just collecting a paycheck. Which, when you look into the history behind the film, that's exactly what happened, because they made the animated bits, which are ingenious and are clever, and I love them. But then they needed to get somebody to do the live action bits, so they went and they got in Bill Murray, and then they got in the Farrelly brothers, and the Farrelly brothers only decided to do it if they were the only people who were credited as directing the film, which is a shame because all the bits that they do are crap, and all the bits they do are crap, and the bits that I can't remember what the animators were called. Unfortunately, one of them's last name is Vito. the bits that they do when you're inside the body with Chris Rock as a white blood cell and David Hyde Pierce of Frasier, he plays Niles in Frasier, playing this stuck-up red blood cell good cop kind of thing. Those bits are ingenious, they're inventive. I absolutely love them. I would give the film a 4 out of 5 for those bits, and I would ignore all the live action bits because they're rubbish. And
so it gives you. Does it give you a tour of the body then? Does it like tour you around the body, like through the gullet, stomach, all that, or is it? It not really quite like.
It does things like that. But it doesn't do the whole body, but it does different bits. And when he swallows the cold pill, Osmosis Jones has to go meet him at the stomach, and it's kind of like an arrivals hall at an airport, if you know what I mean. And
wow!
And they go like, "Okay, just arriving now. We got broccoli." Choo, choo, choo. And then the door opens like, tss, and then all the sort of nutrients come into the body. I think it's very clever the way they do it. And like the fact that
sounds good.
Yeah, then he has a zit on his face, and they call but the zit's actually like a nightclub when he goes into the zit and all that. So it's a film I've been wanting to watch for absolute years. I finally watched it. I really, really like it, and I would recommend anybody go watch it. It's a 4 out of 5 for me.
Wow.
Cool.
Right, and now this is going along quickly. Now we're going to Tolkien. So Shaun, you saw this, and this is about the early or the young life of J.R.R. Tolkien, famous for writing The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and stuff.
That's
now,
right.
I really want to see this, so I'm going to see it hopefully next week.
Okay.
Is it worth it?
It's
a lot depends on this.
No, listen. Yes, I know, and it's going to be interesting to hear your take on it. Let's just say, right, okay. Basically, I mean, it's sort of it's a story about his younger life, and he starts off, obviously, I would say, where he lives is Hobbiton. But in sort of real life, and then
Shire?
The Shire, basically the Shire, and so it's very much, the Shire, and then he ends up because he becomes an orphan. He goes to like Birmingham, to the big industrial town. So he's gone from this lovely super countryside with trees to basically like all the factory and the things filled with smog and stuff. So, and then it flashes back to where he was an officer in the First World War, and he's in the trenches, and he's got his loyal Batman, hasn't he? Loyal Batman. That come on, sir, we got surely good. So and obviously there's explosions and horror and.
So from what I've heard in this film, that they sort of draw parallels between the things he saw.
Probably where he got his ideas from. Where he got his ideas.
Well,
we know
books. That he wrote The Hobbit. He started The Hobbit in the trenches.
That's right. Yeah.
In a hole in the ground in The Hobbit.
There is. I mean, but also the main story weaving through it is he's got like 4 friends. Like poets. They become because they obviously go to private school, and. He's fellowship. Fellowship, exactly right. Yeah, they decided to call themselves. Funny enough. So you've got this little group that all goes through life together. Journey through life. Yeah, he's got a lovely girlfriend who's sort of very elfish with, gives a ring to and stuff, and So basically, you're gonna, it's where he got the ideas from, and some of his early life, and there's trouble, and he gets into this relationship and falls in love, and. One thing and another, and a few arguments in between with the fellowship.
Okay.
So
you can see the clear parallels between his writing life and
totally
his life.
Parallels. Now, did you want to say something, Tosin?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that the way you were talking about it, you made it sound a little bit like there's this parody online called George Lucas in Love, or Lucas in Love, or something like that.
Right.
And it's about George Lucas and it's about how he got all his different ideas for Star Wars and all that. But it's done in a very kind of like. It's done in a very sort of hackneyed, look at that. He walked out one day and this happened, and that's where he got the idea for C-3PO. And so you make it sound a little bit like that, like you.
It is. It's basically how he got the ideas. To be honest, I quite liked it to start with. I thought, I did. I thought it was okay. I thought, this is good. So it's showing how he got the ideas. It's the First World War stuff, all the I think with some of the stuff, it was a bit almost like the trenches were almost like fantasy, I think. Which so some of it, I thought was a little bit overdone. I could see where it come from and maybe to give him the ideas. But yeah, Birmingham looked very much like Mount Doom, 100% like Mount Doom. Actually, it looked similar, like it was taken straight out the Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah.
Where they're sort of the bit where him and Sam are walking through the. But anyway, it wasn't too bad to start with, but then I think it just started to go on a little bit. It just started to. That bit was fine. It was all lovely, and then when it got to the fellowship and the relationship, and there's a story with a poet. His friend was a poet. Obviously, a few of the fellowship get obviously killed during the war and all that, and he wants to do the one guy who wanted to be a poet is like family. His mum's like, no, I don't, you can't, and he obviously tries to. So there's that bit. So I did think it sort of dragged a little bit towards the end.
Okay,
there. It was okay, and I could understand where they were coming from, and it was quite interesting. It's oh yeah, there's a that silhouette looks like the dragon or whatever, and that you got these flames and everything. So yeah, I think you need to go and see it, Sharon, because I think you would enjoy it.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I knew you were.
Okay.
So yeah. So
how many stars did you give it?
Okay, I'll give this a 3. I'll give this a straight 3.
Okay.
So, yeah. So 3. So it's. Do you know what I mean? It was okay.
Yes,
it was all right, but it wasn't. It didn't like. Maybe I was expecting a little bit more. Maybe I was really, really expecting it to be great, and it sort of let me down a little bit.
Okay, so can I have one word, Shaun, on?
You can have one word, of course. You can.
One word on the performance of Nicholas Hoult. Good, bad.
Should we say
that's enough of a word? That's
okay. Yeah. It had moments, but I tell you, it wasn't. It was really, really. It was probably, and he's good in anything I've seen. He was the best thing about Murder on the Orient Express, and that was Derek Jacobi.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
Derek Jacobi turns up, and he is class. He's a class actor.
Oh.
Nicholas Hoult, maybe a bit. Don't
Okay.
know.
All right. Okay. Cool. Now we have 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes because we want to try and get into a second end of our Avengers chat from last week. But we have 5 minutes to finish off the rest of this, and we have another film from Netflix called The Wandering Earth. Now, Shaun,
The Wandering Earth. Yeah.
Shaun, this was you delving into your love of all things Southeast Asian.
It was, yes. Well, this is actually Chinese, so it's the most expensive Chinese film ever made.
All right.
So yeah, really, really. I mean, they poured loads of money into this. This was, I think it got released in America and places like that. But Netflix. I mean, this is brand new. This is 2019 to Netflix, so it was on, which is what I thought. And you've got to say one good thing about Netflix is you can download stuff to watch on a journey. So you can actually download onto a laptop. So if you're on a ferry or anything like that, you can actually.
Oh yes,
watch.
it's accessible, isn't it?
It's accessible. So I did actually watch this in 2 parts, but I did watch it, and I did start to watch a series which I don't know if I'm going to finish, so we might not review that one, but that's later on. Anyway, the story basically, the sun is sort of dying out, and it's going to come swallow up the Earth. So the Earth is going to have to move. So they come up with this plan to make these massive engines that will project the Earth and send Earth out to another star, so that it can. And people go and live underground, so they got this whole thing.
Flood, devastation, earthquake, what?
Yeah, so people go live underground. There is still some stuff there, but it's like -80, and they've got special costumes they have to wear and go out and stuff. And I mean, so they got these massive Earth engines that just send it off. And as they're getting near Jupiter, one of the engines fails, and so they have to sort of try and you've got this subplot running. Whereas at the start, before they do this engine, you got. A dad has to leave his son, because he's got to go into space for so many years and all that. So, and the story is like the son, and he's like hates his dad because his dad's gone off and all that. And obviously there comes a time when they have to meet up, and there's a bit of tension. But obviously they like in the end things. This movie.
So what you're saying is like a typical disaster movie script.
Typical everything in it. Yeah, this is a cross between like. I don't know what all those disaster
Space
movies.
1999.
Probably something like that, but like 2010.
It sounds like the day after tomorrow.
All of them, Tosin, all of them. But there's obviously been some money thrown at this.
Yeah,
the core. That's it.
Yeah,
there's obviously been shed loads of money thrown at this, all right? Because the effects, I've got to say, some of the effects are quite good. To be fair, but it was very, very cliched. You had every cliche in there, you know, with like. Oh, I missed that. You know, explosions and situations where they get commandeered and they have to do this. Oh, you've got to do this. And oh, no, you know, outstretched arms and stuff. And you've got to pull levers and everything. So there was nothing fantastically good in. There was nothing new. There was nothing new. Do you know what I mean? Do you know those things where we must pull that lever, otherwise the whole thing's gonna blow? Yeah, and of course they manage. You know, they never fail. Yeah, that's it exactly. Captain. So it's all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, well, let's just say it was incredibly cliched.
Okay.
Obviously, had a lot of money thrown at it. So, but yeah, it was long. It was long. It was long, and I mean, I should imagine it would do well in some countries, and the Chinese would probably love it. You know, it's all them really. You know, I think there's one Russian that's sort of on the space station. You know, that goes, "Oh yeah, you're good. You've been a good friend," and that. I actually saw the dub version. I think there is a subtitle version. But
well, the thing is, I think I can imagine that the film would do well, if no other reason, because it's like, for instance, if I made a film that was like really, really good, but it was Nigerian, even if it had like all the cliches that Hollywood has been doing for years, I'm like, well, it's about time us Nigerians started making our own cliched action movies. And I would say, if Hollywood can do it, we can too. Why shouldn't we do it? So
apparently, I think that's what they're doing. I was reading somewhere they are starting to do quite big science fiction movies, but they don't touch time travel.
You know, yes, because it's disrespectful to history.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Yeah,
they obviously don't want to know. You know,
that's the
thing.
That's the Chinese thing. So
you venerate your ancestors.
But there's no time travel in this. This is just all future. You know, future engines. So and I mean, there is a bit to be fair. Yeah, just quickly. There's a bit that the engine that actually does fail is in a place called it says engine number, because you have all the titles come out. Engine number 739 Sulawesi thing. Well, Sulawesi is an island in Indonesia, and I actually went there, so I thought, oh, Sulawesi. It looked nothing like Sulawesi, obviously, because it was some sort of studio, but that was where they had to mend the engine. So I can imagine. I can imagine the thinking is kind of like, for years we've been seeing American films where they put America at the center of the world of anything that happens, and it's about time we had a film that put China in the middle of the world where everything happens. Well, everything is like China centric, and I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. I can totally understand that, but I also do think though that there's some areas of the world, and I consider the country I come from to be one of these, but I know definitely Southeast Asia, there is a much higher tolerance for cheese than there is in Europe or England. Europe, yeah. I think so.
Things that would have people here rolling their eyes like, oh my God, are things that a lot of people, they would just be like, yay, like the Backstreet Boys. They love them. They love the Backstreet Boys over there.
Yeah.
But
so stars wise,
yes.
I would just give this a 3.
Okay,
so
3.
It was, so it's a 3. Yeah, pretty average.
Ooh.
Run of the mill sort of film.
Ooh, okay, cool. Thank you very much for that. So in our speedy version of this, the speedy exercise this week of Netflix Cinema, it turns out that the winner this week is. It's mega close. It's mega close. It's so close that, Shaun, I'll predict that after I tell you what the scores are, you're going to tell me, well, let's call it a draw then. But
yeah.
But no, there must be a winner. There must be a winner. This is like the Champions League. There must be a winner. This isn't and
well, I could always up Lord of the Rings. No, I wouldn't do it. My integrity wouldn't let me. I've made my choice. Yeah, go on.
All right, cool. And the so the winner this week by 0.1 of a point. 0.1 of a point. Yeah, is.
Let's go. Okay, can we guess?
Yeah, guess. Okay, you guys guess.
I bet Netflix just swings.
I think Cinema gets it.
Do you? Oh, well, there you go.
Wait, so you have a 50-50 chance, but the winner this week is Cinema.
Oh,
Cinema by 0.1 of a point.
0.1. Wow. Well, that was good. That was a good show then.
Yeah, good one. It was close. All right, so thank you so much for joining us this week. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for everybody who's been listening to us, especially on Castbox. I mean, apparently people have been really, really sort of like following the show on Castbox, so which is pretty cool. And leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Get in touch with us on Twitter at Netflix vs Cinema, and we're gonna try and do another 10 minutes or so of talking about Avengers Endgame, and we're going to put that one up afterwards. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me.
Can I just, one thing, Tosin, have we got like 30 seconds?
Okay.
Sharon, I believe you saw the silence, which we reviewed when the show wasn't on there. Could you give us a very quick, what you thought of it? Just 2 seconds and a rating of silence.
Well, I thought it was an interesting take on, nature versus man, and then man versus man in an apocalyptic situation. So I thought it was interesting. It reminded me more of Bird Box than
A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place, which it obviously was going to get compared to.
Yes, especially as Stanley Tucci's his sister-in-law was in A Quiet Place in Emily Blunt. I thought, yes, it reminded me more of Bird Box, in that the main problem is not with this phenomena of these sort of horrible flying things. It's other people. They're the biggest threat. And if you can deal with this sort of natural phenomena, but it's the people that the hardest things to cope with. But I thought it did well. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, but it was nothing new to the genre. So I'd give it a 3.
I think that's what I gave it.
Yeah.
Sure
I enjoyed it, but it was nothing spectacular.
Thanks, Toes. I just wanted to get Sharon's take on it, and hopefully when she sees Tolkien, I'll get her take on that as well. Yeah. And you.
Yeah. I think Sharon, you were just a little bit more generous than Shaun was. Shaun gave that a 2.
Yeah. I gave it a 2. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. All right. But I think that's mainly because he does not like Stanley Tucci.
That's it. That was it.
I quite like Stanley Tucci.
Yeah. No.
Some people do. Some people don't.
Okay,
it's funny. It's weird. Tosin was saying that's weird.
Yeah,
okay. Avengers.
Yes. No. But okay. But just all that's left to say is goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
We'll see you next week.